This is Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Ron Rohde, Kentucky Afield's first host back in 1953. Now, I'm proud to present Charlie Baglan.
There is not a day goes by that I don't thank heavens for Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. Two great tastes that go great together, chocolate, peanut butter. Well, there are two nature programs that go great together, too, and the outcome is pretty sweet. The Kentucky Aquatic Ed program that teaches kids fishing, and Finn's Lakes, stocked lakes that feature good fishing close to home. We go inside outdoors this week to learn more coming up on Kentucky Afield Radio.
It's time to register for Kentucky's elk hunts. This is Tim Farmer. The Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central and the only place to enter this year's draw. Elk hunting in Old Kentucky. Take it from me, there's nothing like it. 1,000 names will be drawn, and with the Pick 2 option, you gotta like your odds. The deadline is midnight, April 30th. The Kentucky Elk Draw. Enter at fw.ky.gov. Again, fw.ky.gov.
At the absolute worst, it was a little white lie.
A little white lie.
After all, when it hit the line, it felt like a 15-pounder. It doesn't matter what the scale says. So it might be an ever so slight deviation from the truth.
Sometimes in fishing, the truth is hard to catch.
Maybe just a stretch.
But the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife reminds you, fishing isn't about math. It's about fun.
And fudging a little if you need to.
Kentucky fishing.
It'll make a liar out of you.
This is Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglan, and the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife. I'm wanting to go back 8 or so years ago, put an emphasis on accessibility. People will fish, the thinking was, if there was a place nearby to go, and if when I went there, I had a little luck at it. That is to the credit of Commissioner John Gassett, and it's pretty much worked. I'm talking to a couple of fellows today, Marc Johnson, who is the Aquatic Education Administrator with the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, and urban fisheries biologist Dane Balsman, who is in charge of a group of lakes you probably have heard of called FINS. That's an acronym, F-I-N-S, Fishing in Neighborhoods. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Give me the minute message on each. Dane, let's just start with you. FINS Lakes. What is that all about?
Well, the FIN stands for the Fishing in the Neighborhoods program. The main objective of the program is, again, to provide opportunities close to cities around the state where people don't have to travel far to go fishing. They can go right out their back door. They've got a couple hours after work with the kids. Don't have to go far. They can fish. And we stock these lakes with a lot of fish, again, so they have a chance of having a successful trip and catching fish when they go out. You're looking at cities. How big does the city have to be to qualify? They really can be all sizes across the state. We've got we have all the big cities across the state covered. Lexington, we finally added Jacobson Park this past year. Louisville, we have 8 lakes in Louisville. Owensboro, we've got 3 lakes. Northern Kentucky, I think we've got about half a dozen lakes up there. But then we've also got a lot of smaller towns and smaller cities across the state covered as well. So there is no population size. If the city has a nice park or a nice lake in the park, that we can go ahead and stock and provide opportunities for the people of those towns. I guess last question is, obviously, how close is close? The large towns, we like to have it within, half an hour, 15, 20 minutes. A lot of people we see, we've done a lot of survey work. A lot of people don't travel further than a half an hour to these lakes. We like to provide, again, right out their back door where they don't have to spend a lot of gas money and go far from their home. Marc Johnson, what's the minute message on your program?
Well, I'd like to say that Dane is right on target in terms of people wanting access to these opportunities close to home. There are a lot more activities competing for our young people and even adults' time now that folks have sports practices to take kids to. They have martial arts and all sorts of other things. It creates less time for people to go out and fish. So basically, we're putting the fish in where most of the population is, that being the urban areas like Louisville, Lexington, northern Kentucky, and taking it one step further, we want to provide the equipment and the skills that people need to go out and catch the fish.
Looking at your title, Aquatic Resources Education, I know that people recognize you as teaching kids to fish. KARE is the initials. What's that KARE stand for?
That's Kentucky Aquatic Resources Education.
So to me, that sounds like more than fish, and I'm going to bet you more than kids.
It is. It's much more than that. I think everything that we try to do in our education and outreach efforts is designed toward teaching greater appreciation of all of the outdoors. So while someone may participate in one of my fishing programs or an Explore bow hunting program or visit the Salado Wildlife Education Center, all of these programs overlap and hopefully promote a greater sense of stewardship and a conservation ethic among the people involved.
What age ranges do you serve?
It used to be we targeted the middle school range. Now more so we target families, because if I take children fishing, it's most likely going to be those adults that come with the children who are going to give them the next exposure to the fishing. When school is out and they think, I want to go fishing, who are they going to ask? They're probably going to ask mom, dad, neighbor, uncle, somebody like that. So we're really trying as much as possible to target not just the children that participate in the program, but the adults that come with them, whoever those people are.
I wish I had you two in my life a long time ago when I was just a little kid. My daddy died when I was, I think, 5 years old. I had a grandfather who was getting along in years. My mother could have used a little instruction that just wasn't readily there. It surfaced, and I'm thankful that it did. And we all have stories of how we learned to fish as children. But kids today, because of Finn's Lakes, because of programs like yours, Mark, have to have a leg up on kids from a generation or so ago. Is that fair to say?
I think so. I think a lot of people from the past, grew up fishing farm ponds. And that's another thing. They grew up fishing farm ponds, and as societies become more urbanized, you don't see, or it's a little bit harder to get access to those farm ponds. So again, providing opportunities in these cities, and then having a mentor or someone take you either through Mark, one of his classes, or an instruction, or having a mentor take you. I mean, that's the key, is having someone and taking someone new to fishing, because that's how you introduce someone, and that's how we keep fishing alive.
The Fishing in Neighborhoods program came about 2006?
Yeah. Started with 5 pilot lakes in 2006, and then in 2009 we underwent our large expansion, and we're currently at 39 lakes in 24 counties.
Now, Mark, your program has been around, as I recall, since 91? So you precede the Finn's Lakes. Wouldn't it have been nice to have Finn's Lakes at the same time that your program got started?
Well, it's interesting. You look at the roughly 25-year history of this program, and as Dane mentioned, the population has shifted away from the rural areas and the farms and more toward the urban areas. We've also had a shift in the face of the population in terms of demographics. So the Finns program is very relevant to Kentucky's population today. Maybe it would not have been at that time. Who's to say?
You do your thing. Dane, you do your thing. Your paths have to cross a lot. When you do your programs, Mark, do you try to target them at Finn's Lakes where they are stocked and maybe a little better chance of catching a fish?
Well, I definitely make people aware of them as options. A lot of times people have a favorite fishing hole, and sometimes that's where they want to go to fish. But as the popularity of these Finn's Lakes grows, I do see people shifting toward using those lakes that we do the supplemental stockings. So I think the word has gotten out that these great fishing opportunities exist, and people are starting to move their events more toward those Finn's Lakes.
You can't do this by yourself. It's a big state.
We do try to take advantage of partnerships with Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, fish and game clubs, conservation groups like Trout Unlimited, and basically empower them to be the resource in the local community.
We're discussing Fishing 101, lakes dotting the state that are routinely stocked with keeper-sized fish, which puts good fishing close to home. And we're talking about a program that teaches kids and families how to put a fishing pole in your hand and a little knowledge in your head about aquatic life. More with Dane and Marc when we come back. I'm Charlie Baglin, and you are listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. This is Kentucky Afield Radio. I'm Charlie Baglin, and I am 52 years old. I say that to put into some framework the era in which I and others in my age group grew up. Now, for fun, we had Little League, swimming, scouts. We had the Big Red Machine. We also had fishing, but we probably didn't have it as much in our life as kids born 10, 20, maybe 30, 40 years before us. Yet we had fishing. We remember the love of fishing and retained it on into our adult life. Now, years pass and the video computer age begins to dawn. And also showing its head was the hectic, nightmarish scheduling that kids have. They practically need a secretary. Maybe that's why they have a smartphone. Band, play practice, sports practice, soccer. I mean, it's really hard to squeeze in something new. And that's where they cross paths with you, Marc Johnson. So often you get one shot, and you want fishing to be fun and meaningful. So, pardon the cliche, but really what kind of luck do you have hooking kids on fishing?
That's tough, Charlie, because obviously we would like to keep them all, but that's not possible. I would be very happy if half the kids that I take fishing continue to fish. I'd be happy with half. I do have to admit, though, I didn't grow up fishing. You know, growing up in Louisville, about the extent of my fishing activity was we didn't have air conditioning. So in the heat of the summer, we would go down to Cox's Park and fish during the hot part of the day, and then we'd go home. I am kind of living proof that this sort of effort works. It's really been in my adult life and with the help of friends and mentors that I've learned to fish, and I love to fish.
But if you are 6 years old, 26, 46 years old, anything that you wind up doing a second time is going to be based on having success with it the first time. If you intend to get a kid to get a pole and go back to the lake, chances are he or she is going to feel they have a knack for this. It's something that's fun and comes naturally. There's a reward. There is a payoff at the end.
Yeah, and I think these lakes are really set up for not intimidating people. You were talking about some of these larger lakes. That can be very intimidating for someone that's never fished, doesn't know anything about fishing, to go out to a large reservoir. They don't have a boat. They don't know what to use, where to go. Whereas if you go to these small parks, all the amenities are there. It's very comfortable for them, and they don't need a lot of fancy equipment to go out and have success catching fish. They can go out with a bobber, a worm, and catch, and there's a multitude of fish that they can catch in these little lakes. Having success is very key. If they go out and just have trip after trip of being unsuccessful, it can be a turnoff.
And to add to that, Charlie, success is important. And what we try to do in the education programs is give them the skills and the confidence to go out and do it again and be successful. So the one-time exposure, we try to give them everything they need to feel confident to go back to the water and say, if I get hung on a rock, I know what to do. If I catch a catfish, I know how to handle it. You know, those sorts of things. It's the skills that build the confidence.
The Kentucky Aquatic Resources Education Program and the Fins Lakes Program, Fishing in Neighborhoods Lakes, this isn't about having a $50,000 bass boat, right?
Correct.
This is about having a Zebco 33 on a decent rod. If that. It doesn't take much to get properly outfitted for a successful, fun day at a Fishing in Neighborhoods lake.
That's correct. Again, no fancy equipment. You just need a basic rod and reel, a few small hooks, box of worms and go down to the local lake and drown some worms for a while, and hopefully you'll catch a few fish.
If I am under 16, I do not need a fishing license. If I'm over 16, I do. That's, $20? Other than that, how much do I have to spend to get a good pole and the basic tackle? It can't be that much.
I would say don't overlook the most basic outfit, which is a cane pole. Cane poles are very, very cheap. You can get them for anywhere from $3 to $8. It's very effective, especially on a lot of these Fins lakes that have platforms, fishing platforms that you can stand and actually lower your bait into the water, so there's nothing complicated about it. Don't overlook equipment that you may already have access to. A lot of times there's a rod and reel hanging up in your garage or you're down in the basement, and all you need to do to make that a useful rod and reel is take the line off, put new line on, and you're ready to go. If you're going to buy an outfit, I would say the minimum you probably want to spend would be in the neighborhood of $15 to $20.
Really?
Yes, and I would look for a rod and reel that has a screw that allows you to remove the handle and put it on the other side, as for a left-handed person.
Uh-huh.
I think that is the indicator of the lowest quality reel that you ever want to buy. And you also need to consider that you are buying a reel, not the line. So many of them come with very cheap line on them. And if you buy a cheap reel, the first thing you should do is take the line off and replace it with a good quality line. It doesn't have to be a real expensive line. You know, it doesn't have to be red or braided or anything like that. But replace that line with like an 8-pound or 10-pound test, whatever is recommended for the reel.
I saw recently a press release, and Mark, your picture was included on the electronic version of this. And there's a picture of you at a Fins lake, and this is your son, Zachary.
Yes.
And the headline reads, "Get someone started fishing at Fins Lakes. There you two are having the time of your life." Let me interject a quick personal story, because I saw that you were quoted in this several times in that press release. But some of my favorite memories fishing, I was a young boy with my cousin David. Now, this was up in Carroll County. That's northern Kentucky, very near to Trimble County. We were fishing on Locust Creek, the Little Kentucky River, a couple of small lakes there. One was Camp Kysock, the other at General Butler State Resort Park. And we would pride ourselves, Mark and Dane, we would pride ourselves not just in how many fish we caught, but in how many lures we didn't lose. He went fishing without me one time, and he came back, and he was as frustrated as can be. "Charlie, I lost 17 lures." I'm glad I didn't go with him that day. But the quote I was trying to get out of you was, if you're losing lures and you're getting snags and you're getting caught up in tree branches, chances are you are fishing in the right place.
That is very, very true.
Elaborate on that.
Well, fish, if you watch professional anglers, you know, the folks that go out in the boats, they're not trying to get way out into the middle of the lake. They're fishing toward the bank because that's where the fish structure is going to be. You know, the underwater branches and trees and rocks and things, places where like the fish like to hide. So if you're not fishing around those places, then you're not fishing in the right places. And if you're not losing tackle, then you're not fishing in the right places. So I think it's really important to give people permission up front to lose hooks and to lose lures so that they're not so distracted by the loss of a lure that they're not practicing their casting and their techniques. You know, try to get close to that bush. So what if you get hung up in it and you lose the lure? It's just the lure. Take plenty.
Talking about places to go to catch the fish when you're prowling around the bank of the lake, some of these places are probably coming to mind right now in your mind, Dane, places you know of at your Fins lakes.
A lot of them do have laid down trees like Mark was talking about. And when we do our spring sampling, we sample all these lakes with electrofishing gear to see what the fish populations look like. And exactly what Mark says, that these fish really hang out and congregate near these structures, these lay-down trees. That's often where we see most of the fish come off when we're doing our spring sampling. So a lot of these lakes, yes, they have laid-down trees. We've added habitat to some of these lakes, again, that these fish really congregate to these structures in the lake.
Do you have a favorite Fins Lake?
I have several. Stein Lake up in Alexandria is probably one of the prettier lakes. It's a little 7-acre lake. A lot of them have very nice amenities, walking paths. They're very aesthetically pleasing. There's some really nice-looking lakes that are very well kept. Kudos to all the local parks that we partner with. They do an amazing job of upkeeping these lakes, keeping them well-maintained.
Stein Lake in Alexandria. Now, that's very near to Cincinnati. Now, you talk about putting a fishing opportunity right there near a center of population. You did it there. That's a great example.
Yeah. Again, that's keying on keeping it close. We've got several there in northern Kentucky, and again, there's usually an opportunity if you're in a large city that you're not going to have to drive more than about 15-20 minutes to get to one of these lakes. So,
what has been your most recent add to the list of Fins Lakes?
Well, Lexington was the one big hole that we had in the program. We did not have a lake in Lexington. Lexington really just has Jacobson as the only public water that's open for fishing. So we were finally able to partner with Lexington Fayette Urban County government this last year.
Not to cut you short, but Jacobson Park, that's quite the catch for the Fins program. We've got to get to a break, but when we come back, I want to find out when you stock these lakes. My name's Charlie Baglin. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Let me toss in a plug for our brand new Kentucky Afield cap. It is a tan cap. You've got the Kentucky Afield logo. The Kentucky Afield is in this bright gold with a blue Kentucky state outline behind it. It's beautiful. Trust me, it is worth any amount of grief you may get from whomever controls the checkbook in your family. You can wear them anywhere. You can use them to swat flies. You can use them to swat an old dog. You can put change in it, keys in it. It really is multifunctional. And I use mine for this. Put it in the passenger seat. It holds my French fries as I roll down the road. You can see the new cap. You can order it. KYAfield.com. You'll see the Kentucky Afield store button right there. Fishing report right now. Let's take a look at what's biting where.
This is Jeff Crosby with the Central District Fishing Report. Lake temperatures remain in the mid to upper 40s across the district. However, warming trends in the next couple of weeks should provide an excellent opportunity to catch pre-spawn largemouth bass. Some of the biggest fish of the season or even of a lifetime can be taken. You can catch these fish at your local farm pond or lake or reservoir. You want to fish for them using a pig and jig or pig and plastic combinations. You want to fish these baits around shoreline covers such as a downed tree, brush pile, or even a boat dock, especially adjacent to spawning flats. Also, lakes that are a part of our Fishing in Neighborhoods program, also known as the Fins program, have recently been stocked with harvestable-sized channel catfish. So grab your pole and enjoy another great spring fishing season in Kentucky.
Hi, this is Eric Cummins with your Southwest Kentucky Fishing Report. Barren River Lake, be aware they're starting to hold the water for the spring fill-up. The lower half of the lake is less stained than the upper half. Bass in that lower half are fair with jerk baits and jigs. Upper sections of the lake and backs of coves are good with lipless crankbaits, shallow cranks, and spinner baits. Crappie are in 3 to 6 foot in those stained areas, and 6 to 10 foot in the clearer sections with tubes and minnows, and working well at both. Muskie action at Green River Lake is best on shallow flats and back halves of coves with jerk baits, spinner baits, and shallow cranks. Walleye are in pre-spawn mode at Green River Lake with males on the move. As always, good luck and good fishing. Be sure you wear your life jacket.
Well, in western Kentucky, down at Kentucky and Barkley Lake, it's starting to look like spring down here, and fishing is starting to pick up. Now, it's still got to kind of pick and choose your days. Those days that the sun come out, crappie and bass, they're going to move up shallow. I had a good fishing report from a bass fisherman just yesterday, fishing a jig up in about 4 foot of water on rocky shorelines, also casting crankbait, crawfish color. Crappie fishermen, they're still catching a lot of crappie out deep, vertical fishing off of ledges, But again, on those sunshiny days, I'd have to cast a little tube jig or an inline spinner up on the rocky shorelines to try and catch those black crappie. Down below the dams, they're still discharging water, so fishing's off in the tailwaters. I would concentrate on the crappie and bass right now. It's getting hot. This is Paul Reister, and I hope you find a good day to go fishing.
This is Kentucky Afield Radio. My name is Charlie Baglin, and we're talking about learning to fish and 39 astounding lakes around the state that are calling your name. After the break.
It's time to register for Kentucky's elk hunts. This is Tim Farmer. The Kentucky Fish and Wildlife website is Elk Central and the only place to enter this year's draw. Elk hunting in Old Kentucky. Take it from me, there's nothing like it. 1,000 names will be drawn, and with the Pick 2 option, you gotta like your odds. The deadline is midnight, April 30th. The Kentucky Elk Draw. Enter at fw.ky.gov. Again, fw.ky.gov.
We are back talking with Marc Johnson, who is in charge of Kentucky's Aquatic Ed program. It's teaching people how to fish. And Dane Balsman, also in the studio, he's in charge of the Fishing in Neighborhoods program, FINS, Fishing in Neighborhoods, that puts good fishing close to home. You were talking about your favorite lake, and Mark, at the break, you made an interesting point that you looked right at him. You said, Dane, you didn't talk about how big the fish were you were catching there. You talked about how pretty it was and the hiking paths. And there's more to fishing than catching fish, isn't there?
Yes, and that's an important lesson, too, that we try to teach in every fishing program. It is great. We want everyone to be successful and leave with the skills to catch fish without our help, but we don't always catch fish. And I just think it was really neat that when Dane was referring to his favorite Finns Lake, he talked about all sorts of other things that involve the place and being in the place. And that's the kind of appreciation or stewardship that we hope to instill in everybody that participates in our programs.
I bet you just a handful of them will I ever see. But I know where my favorite lakes are. But we can go up and down the dial. We can go across the state. I'm in eastern Kentucky, and I want to take off for a half hour and drive to a pretty good place to fish. Well, what are my opportunities? What are folks' opportunities there in eastern Kentucky?
Well, again, getting back that they don't have to be in large cities. We've got one out in Kingdom Come State Park, out by the city of Cumberland. That there's a little lake, a 2.5-acre lake, right outside the town. It's up on top of the mountain, 20, 30 feet deep. It's up in the mountains. It stays a little bit colder or cooler water, so the trout make it a little bit longer into the summer.
Name some of these lakes. Just in eastern Kentucky alone, some of the lakes that people may not be aware are Finns Lakes.
Well, again, we've got Kingdom Come State Park Lake is in Harlan County. We've got Martin County Lake, or Milo Lake, is in Martin County. That's a department-owned lake. In Knox County and Barberville, we've got the Brickyard Ponds, which is a very nice little lake that gets highly utilized. If you go up a little bit north, kind of the northeast part of the state, in Mount Sterling, we've got Easy Walker Park Lake. And that's pretty much east. There's a lot in central Kentucky, northern Kentucky, but east is probably the least that we have of any of the lakes, just because, again, the population isn't quite as high in the eastern part of the state.
Okay, Dane, let's move a little bit farther west. Let's say the corridor north to south, Interstate 75. We've got
Whitehall Lake, which is between Richmond and Lexington and in Madison County. Jacobson Park Lake is the newest one in Lexington. Going up to Georgetown, you've got Lusby and Scott County Lakes. In Danville, you've got Millennium Park Lake. Once you get up 75 into northern Kentucky, you've got Lake Pollywog and Dry Ridge, Middleton Mills Parks in northern Kentucky, Southgate Lake Park, Prisoners Park, the DeVoe Park in Covington. Boone County, we've got a new one, a pretty good-sized lake in Boone County, Camp Ernst Lake. That's about a 25-acre lake there. So we've got northern Kentucky pretty well covered. And then, again, we've got about 6 or 8 lakes in the Louisville area.
Mark, are some of these lakes also where you have your programs in action?
Yes, they are. As the number of lakes has grown and as the word has gotten out about the good fishing opportunities available at these lakes, I am seeing people move more toward having events on those lakes.
The one thing that makes it good, you stock these regularly with keeper size fish. All points to make it, you don't just stock them with fingerlings. These are fish you can go out and catch, stock today, catch today, take home today, right?
Yeah, if the angler wants, we've got special regulations in place that are a little more restrictive than statewide, so the resource doesn't get completed a few days after stocking. I would note that. But yeah, these fish that we're putting out there, if an angler wants to keep them, they're harvestable size fish. The channel catfish that we stocked are about 3/4 of a pound to a pound average, so they're 15, 16-inch fish on average that are getting stocked. The trout, which again won't make it throughout the year, so we encourage anglers to buy their trout permit if they want to keep trout, but we encourage anglers to keep the trout. They're about 9 to 11 inches on average, so they're a nice eating size fish that if angler wants to take them home, they can.
What's the minimum number of fish every year that will be stocked in these lakes?
Trout, we're stocking, all the lakes get at least 3 trout stockings, and the fewest fish that would get stocked in any lake would be 1,500 trout and probably 600 or 800 channel catfish. And again, the trout are getting stocked 3 times, and the lakes get up to 4 channel catfish stockings during the warmer months.
So in the warmer months, what are the months of stocking?
Catfish we're stocking March, April, May, and August are the catfish stocking months.
And for trout?
Trout will either be in October or November, whenever those water temps start to cool down, and then we'll stock trout again in February and March.
All right, Dane, that's pretty good information. Where we left off was somewhere up and down Interstate 75. Let's move farther west, the Louisville area. What Fins Lakes are waiting for you there?
Well, starting on the east side of Louisville, we've got the Miles Park Lakes. There's 2 lakes in that complex. We've got Fisherman's Park Lake. We've got Waterson Park, Tom Wallace, Waverly, Cherokee, and I think that's all of them in Louisville. Owensboro, we've got 3 lakes in Owensboro, Panther Creek Park, Yellow Creek Park, and Wayman Morris Park. We added one this last year in Litchfield, the James Bevel Park. Down in Bowling Green, we've got Three Springs Lake, which is a pretty large lake for the program. I think it's right at about 30 acres. Out in Paducah, we've got Bob Noble Park. In Benton, we've got Mike Miller Park.
Your program, Kentucky Aquatic Resources Education, and the Fishing in Neighborhoods program was put there to provide opportunity for people who wanted to fish, but would just say, I don't know how, or I don't really have any place good to go that's close. And now those 2 things are virtually eliminated. Are we seeing, and I say we, the fishing community, has the Kentucky Department of Fish and Wildlife, has the fishing community seen an increase in the number of people fishing now that these lakes are in place, now that your program is in place? Is there a way to measure any of that?
One of it is license sales, and last year I know we did have an uptick in license sales. It's kind of hard to tell what impact these programs have. We do surveys at these lakes. We see just an immense amount of fishing pressure at these lakes. These lakes really get used a lot. But as far as the license sales, there's a lot of things that go into tracking that. Last year, again, license sales were up, which we were glad to see, but it was also a very dry spring, and that seems to be the key is having good weather during the spring and getting people out early to buy a fishing license.
Oftentimes, partnerships make the world go round. Dane, you need bodies of water to call Fins Lakes to stock and have great places close to home to fish. And Mark, I'm looking at you, and I know you need places to teach people to fish. Seems like these programs would work hand in hand, not just with each other, but let's take state parks. Let's take local community parks. And very often, they will have a body of water there. Sometimes they will have staff there who will say, yeah, I would like to teach care at my park. Who reaches out to who? Do they reach out to you, or is it vice versa?
Generally, they seek me out. We have a lot more demand for the service we provide, which involves basically getting me on your calendar, and then I show up wherever you want to fish with a vehicle full of rods and reels and give the instruction. Basically, try to teach everybody to fish. Most of my business is folks who know what we do, and they contact me.
Is there a fee for your service?
No. Actually, it goes back to the sale of hunting and fishing licenses. To provide these programs does take money, and KDFWR gets its funding in large part from the sale of hunting and fishing licenses, not from tax dollars. So anyone who has bought a license, whether that's to hunt, fish, or register to boat, has paid for the services that we provide.
Dane, is there a fee to use a Finn's Lake?
No, and it really is an easy sell and easy partnership with these local parks. They have a great resource there to use, but these lakes get so much fishing pressure that without stocking, the fishing pressure exceeds the fishery. So we provide the fish for them, and oftentimes they keep the park well maintained. A lot of these parks do have fishing programs, and if you're wanting to get introduced to fishing, you can contact Mark, but you also can contact your local parks that one of these Finn's Lakes is at. And a lot of times during the summer, they will have a fishing program that the local parks do on their own. So if you're wanting to get introduced to fishing, contact your local park and see if they have a program, and oftentimes they will sometime during the year.
One thing I'd like to add, Charlie, is as gas prices have gone up, I've seen a trend toward larger and larger groups. So they want to either fill a bus, which will hold about 50 or 60 kids, or they want to bring an entire 6th or 7th or 8th grade class, which might be 2 or 3 buses with 60 or 70 kids apiece on it. So these Finn's Lakes are great in that, being located in urban areas, they often have the amenities to accommodate those larger groups. They have the restrooms, they have the picnic tables, they have shelters, and most importantly is bus parking and room for the buses to turn around. You can't turn a bus around just anywhere. So these Finn's Lakes are great for those larger groups.
Dane Balsman and Marc Johnson are my guests. You're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio, and we're talking about 2 very closely related programs. The first is CARE, Kentucky Aquatic Resource Education, and that teaches about aquatic ecosystems and the things that live there: fish, frogs, turtles, darters, hellgrammites, and the FINS program. You've heard that mentioned practically every week on our fishing report. Finn's Lakes. FINS stands for Fishing in Neighborhoods. And these are lakes that are small and easily accessed, closer to cities. They provide good fishing close to home. We have more on the list to cover, and we will do that when we come back. My name is Charlie Baglin, and you're listening to Kentucky Afield Radio. Mark, we were talking a while ago about your son, Zach. How old is he now?
Zach is 12.
Zach is 12. Fishing isn't just for fathers and sons. It's mothers and sons, mothers, daughters. But what are you all seeing? And Dane, maybe you see it a lot too out there on your Finn's Lakes. Type of people are gathered around the banks fishing. Is it father-son, or is it another mix?
It's a lot of families, especially in the spring. We see a lot of families, the mom and dad, the kids, the whole family out. It really is a family sport, I think. It's very conducive to taking the whole family out. I've seen little kids from barely being able to walk have a fishing pole in their hands, up to retired people that spend most of their day at these lakes. So it really does run the gamut, but it's kind of different on what time of year it is. But during the spring, we see a lot of families, and that's really what we've seen from doing surveys at these lakes too, is they get highly utilized by families.
Is Zach a pretty good boy?
Zach is a great kid. He hasn't been fishing for a long time, but he goes often. We may fish, I would say year-round, we fish at least once a week, and during the summertime, as much as 2 or 3 times a week.
You have children yourself, sir?
Not yet.
Not yet. It's coming.
I got a marriage in Mexico first this summer.
Congratulations.
I remember once upon a time, there was a 14-year-old boy in my life, and he reminded me a lot of me when I was 14. I knew everything about everything. There was very little you could teach me, because by darn, I already knew. But consequently, I'd get out there, realize, well, maybe I didn't know as much as I thought I did. And a good chunk of my day was spent in misery versus with a smile on my face. It's okay to not know something. It's okay to admit you need a little instruction. You need a guiding hand. but hey, this is pretty lame, and I already know how to do it. And Dane, Mark, that can be frustrating with a capital F. Do you find that the case very often?
I do, but I think that's just normal childhood development. And yes, they know everything, but that doesn't mean I'm not going to say it again and again and again. Because eventually they may say, hey, what I'm doing is not working. How did he say I should do this?
Yeah.
A good example might be when somebody gets hung in a tree or on a bush or a rock or something. I show them a very specific way of getting that out where most of the time you don't lose your hook or your lure. And I'll see somebody out there and they're bending the pole and pulling, and I'll just say quite simply, that's not how I showed you to do that. So, that's a reminder. Try what I showed you, and maybe it'll work better for you than what you're doing.
What is the biggest disappointment that anybody learning to fish will encounter?
The biggest disappointment. I would caution people, I think if you don't prepare young people especially to be comfortable, meaning if you're going out for a day of fishing and you don't carry snacks for a child, or you don't maybe carry a little activity for the younger child so that if they only want to fish for 30 minutes, they can have a little distraction, or you get excited, it's springtime, you go out and you get a terrible sunburn. Those are the kind of things that are more likely to lead to disappointment than not catching fish. Comfort.
And again, with kids, I think not making it an overly long trip as well. Attention span's probably not as long, so maybe if they only want to fish for a half an hour, that's all that you take them out. You don't keep them out there longer than they want to stay. So
part of keeping it fun is knowing when to stop.
Yes. In fact, when we're talking about teaching people to fish, a lot of times what we're doing is we're fishing for bluegill. They don't call them sunfish for nothing, so there's no reason to drag a teenager out of bed at 6 o'clock in the morning or try to be on the water at 6 o'clock. Get up, have a breakfast, take your time, get out there, enjoy the day.
Mark, your program is KARE, Kentucky Aquatic Resources Education. Anybody wanting to know more about that, do they Google CARE, or what do they do?
My email address is Marc, M-A-R-C, A as in Allen, .Johnson @ky.gov. So Marc, M-A-R-C, A .Johnson @ky.gov.
Dane, I'm looking at you. I need a map for these Finns Lakes.
They can go to the Fish and Wildlife website, which is fw.ky.gov, and look for the big Finns logo. It's on the right side. Or they can also go under the fishing tab and look for places on where to fish, and there'll be a map there. They've got directions to all the lakes. It's got a list of all the lakes that are in the program, as well as a Google map that you can get right from your house to the lake with no problem.
You fellas are the embodiment of making something easy.
So also on the website, under that Finns logo, we put up all the stocking dates. We advertise the stocking dates, so if you're wanting to know when the fish were last stocked or when they're going in, check out the website because the dates are up there.
That's FW, what's that again?
fw.ky.gov, and it's even got a place where you can submit pictures of fish that you've caught these lakes. Send them to us, and we'll put them up on the website.
How cool. If there's a measure of fishing, a way to qualify, a grading system, if you will, that we really haven't talked about, and I'm going to say this is probably good, high school, middle school on down. Is fishing cool? Now, people will say, oh, you fish? Well, that's cool. Now, if they don't say that, they may not say it's cool, but at least it is not cool. They will instead say, if something's not cool, they'll say, hey, that's not cool. That's not cool. Dude, that's not cool. But you don't hear that when it comes to fishing. Oh, you fish? It's cool, and furthermore, it is not cool. That's a giant leap for fishing. Fishing is cool.
I think fishing is cool. I mean, if you can get a picture of yourself with a fish, it doesn't matter whether it's a little fish or a great big fish, the smile is the same. And that picture represents success. Nowadays, everybody has a cell phone. It's very easy to snap a picture. So, yeah, I think fishing is cool.
Last question. Do either one of you text and drive? Mark, do you text and drive?
Never.
Dane?
No, sir.
Text and fish Your Honor, I am guilty as charged. Text and fish. But not behind the wheel. It is spring season, it is tax season, and next week we'll be talking about a way to sort of channel some of your tax dollars towards programs that you can personally support. The Nature and Wildlife Fund helps for better habitat and what lives there. My taxes are already done this season, I'm proud to say. I donated to the Nature and Wildlife Fund. You'll find out next week how you can too. Until then, join us again next week. We will go inside outdoors again. Easter weekend on Kentucky Afield Radio.